Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking time for yourself today to breathe. And just as a reminder, as we always like to do, is making sure that our phones are turned off and set aside, and all of our watch applications that like to annoy us, right? We want to kind of silence those and put those to the side for just a little time for you and for some time to breathe together today. So, this is week 4 of our Breathe Well workshop, and just taking this time to once again kind of answer any questions that you may have around your breath work. And we'll take some time for reflections now. Terry, any reflections over the past week with your breath work? Have you had time to breathe?
I've actually been using the variety of the different techniques that you gave us. In fact, it was last night. We had a pretty heinous schedule yesterday, starting at 6 o'clock in the morning and ran until 8 o'clock last night.
Mm.
And I actually did while we were driving. I was doing that 30 count,
Oh, good.
bringing it back,
Yeah.
and then I was able to refocus and feel a lot calmer in between back-to-back appointments. So that in itself was worth the price of admission because it made even my partner, who's my husband, feel okay because he
Mm.
was like, "Are you going to be able to do this schedule?"
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, of starting with a breakfast meeting, then having constant, client crises, and then having two interviews, and then having an expo and having a chamber thing. And he was like, "Are you going to be able to do this, or are you going to be a total vegetable, or or a shrew?" And I was like, "No." I said I started with my morning routine, and then midday. I did throw some box breathing in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
But doing those counts before that last meeting, because I was dreading it.
Mm.
I was feeling um, not overwhelmed, but depleted. And
Yeah.
that little bit of doing the 30 count really did boost that energy, helped me refocus. And I have to thank you for that. So,
Oh, I love that. I love that. And thanks for sharing. It is something, it is this tool that we have, and sometimes we start to forget about it, but that's why we practice. And, having at least doing a little bit every day reminds us that it is in our toolbox and it is within what we can do. Whether it's needing a little energy or a little rebalancing or even being able to sleep when everything is ruminating in our minds. So thank you so much for sharing that. So important. And so today we're going to talk a little bit more about that sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system and the vagus nerve in specific, because it controls so much within our bodies and we don't always think about it. But today we're going to go a little deeper into that. It does help to improve heart rate variability, enhancing our immune function going into this time of the year. Our immune system can be compromised by viruses, things going on. The changes in temperatures can start to affect us. And so having our immune system functioning at a high level, so that's another reason why we want to practice on a regular basis, is that it's helping our bodies to be able to resist infection from virus. And then obviously, stress and anxiety relief is something that we always need at our disposal. So having those tools are super important. And so within the autonomic nervous system, it usually is automatic. We don't have to think about it. It does control our heart rate, digestion, respiratory rate, our pupil response, urination, and sexual arousal. And two branches are that sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. And so just taking our hand on our heart and hand on the belly and just taking some breaths here. Feeling the breath come in, feel the diaphragm lifting, exhaling it out, and taking in a nice deep inhale on a 4 count. And exhaling on a 4 count. 4, 3, 2, 1. And just know that we have this breath with us. It's just such a beautiful gift that we are given at birth. And when we really think about it as being a gift and having gratitude to our breath, it actually helps us to remember that breath at those times of anxiousness. So, getting into this autonomic nervous system. So, we do have the parasympathetic division and the sympathetic division. And within that, as I mentioned, the pupils. So, parasympathetic is rest, right? So, our pupils are not wide. And so, when we think of wide eyed, we think of sympathetic division. So, that is when those pupils dilate and are ready. It's ready for, fight or flight. And so thinking about that with our pupils, and maybe you see someone, maybe a coworker or a colleague that you see, or a family member, that their pupils are dilated, that can be a sign for you to say, "Ooh, would you like to try and breathe with me?" And helping them to give them tools. Um, Salivation. So our salivate, I think we talked about this last week, Terry. So you having to have that drink, right? It's that our salivation area, we can't even swallow properly whenever we're in fight or flight. So that's when we start to reach for a drink, which is not a bad thing for drinking water. We want to stay hydrated as well. But our parasympathetic division is when we're in that more relaxed state. And so we're able to have that salivation happening naturally. Our airways constrict and dilate. So this is just an autonomic response for when we're in that space. Our heart rate starts to slow when we're more in that parasympathetic versus the sympathetic, where our heart rate increases. It allows the adrenaline to push up and be ready. We talked about digestion. So the stomach is able to digest when we're in a relaxed space. And so you may notice, like when you're traveling, or if you're in a nervous space, you may not have a need to go or have a bowel movement. So if you're staying in a hotel, you're not comfortable, like you may not be in a relaxed state. And so your body may start to feel that, but we can always bring in our breath to help us to reset. So knowing that that is available to us. And then even deeper, so our bladder constricts, if we're in parasympathetic. So reproductive system increases blood flow. So when we're in a relaxed state, so we're able to have that blood flow. When we're in a non-relaxed state, then we're not able to have sexual arousal. So that is another space in this as well. And especially as we start to age, we have more of a tendency to slip into the sympathetic division more often. So having the tools to bring us back to parasympathetic is extremely important. Any thoughts in this space before we move on?
You can definitely tell when we do a lot of events in I don't want to say strange places, but unfamiliar places. You do really we do notice that not being able to, like you're grabbing more water. You are avoiding running to the bathroom in hotels and stuff like that. You just don't feel comfortable. But I have used those techniques of doing some box breathing just to relax enough where I can go into even a talk and not have to grab the water
Yeah.
constantly, because I'm in a more relaxed state, a more focused state. So it is definitely just something. Um, and I'm not even 100% sure it goes just with getting older, but I think that we're more conscious of it as we get older.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think whenever I say the getting older, it's more in some of the areas that there's other things that have layered on. So toxins in our environment
Always. Yes,
have added
definitely.
on. So it makes these things a little more sensitive because
Yes,
of that.
yes. Because
Yeah.
even in like our son is 32, and we've noticed that he's noticed that when he does, and we're very, very blessed. His fiance is very much into breathing,
Oh,
yoga, meditation, and they do a meditation before they go to sleep. She literally calls him and says, "Okay, it's 9:45. Let's do our debrief."
yeah.
And he's literally out before the call. Like a lot of times, she'll text me and say, "Can you go hang his phone up or something?"
I love it. I love it. But yes, I mean, all ages can absolutely benefit from this. I think that as we age, we start to have more awareness, obviously, but then we have also, caused damage over time to our bodies with the toxins that we put into our bodies. So there's definitely, when we start to think about toxins, even in our environment, um, air fresheners. There may be an air freshener that is causing, you may go into a hotel or a conference center where they're using some sort of synthetic, air freshener in the room, and you may not smell it necessarily, but I mean, it's affecting you too. So being aware of those things having an effect on us. And so keeping our home environments, as toxin free as possible. But that's just one example. We could go very deep on that one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. A whole new session. We'll do that
Yes,
next.
it would be a whole new session. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and move on. And going into parasympathetic, we get into that rest and digest, as we talked about. It increases that blood flow to the stomach and the GI tract, stimulation and urination, salivary glands, as we already talked about, and that decrease in heart rate, that pupil normalization for shorter range vision, so that we're in that comfortable state. So when we think about, shorter range vision, it is, we're comfortable. We're not having to think about, the distance and what's going on there. On the flip side is that fight or flight. So it is, the blood goes into to muscles and lungs as much as 12 times more. So think about that rush, that adrenaline pump, that goes up with that. Our heart rate increases. Those pupils do dilate for that better long distance and vision. And ironically, that's sexual orgasm as well. So it's like the heightened sense of all of the things that we think about, that we don't necessarily think about, because it is that autonomic nervous system kicking in. So wanted to put this into, you mentioned yoga. When we think about yoga and the reason that breath work ties in so beautifully within yoga, and when we start to think about even any of our weight training or exercises that we're doing, our breath is very much involved in that. And so when we start to think about that and tying it into our workouts and within yoga, you are always inhaling on any strength bracing expansion. That's the sympathetic response. And then the exhale is the opening, and the relaxation, contraction is in that parasympathetic response. So we think about the inhale for length and strength, exhale for opening and release. Inhale is yang, sun, day, heat. Exhale, yin, moon, night, cool. So just an example of that is, you might be able to take an ankle and cross it over one of your knees right now, if that's in a comfortable place for you. And just take a moment here for a little stretch. And so as we do that, we're kind of in that preparation space to do that. And here we're just preparing. So we're taking in a nice deep inhale. And as you exhale, start to lean forward and pressing gently on that leg. You can have that stretch, or feel that stretch a little more as we're exhaling. And so with that same inhale, raising back up, creating space, exhale, moving into that space. And as you do that throughout your day or throughout your yoga practice, you're going to start to see the breath working in tandem with your body. And same thing with strength poses, right? We inhale to prepare. Think about a bridge pose when you're lying on a mat. and you take in that nice deep inhale to prepare, then you exhale and lift up those hips. So you're exhaling on the exertion. So thinking about that anytime you're working out or going through your yoga practice, even if the instructor isn't repeatedly saying inhale now or exhale then you know that when you're in those spaces, and if you're in a hold position, they say hold and stretch in that position, you're inhaling and creating space, you're exhaling and moving a little deeper into that space. So it's just a beautiful way to take that in. Any questions on that, or have you experienced any of that?
I do. When part of our practice is like in between meetings, we're doing shoulder rolls and we're
Mhm.
doing basically opening up our chests. Should we be doing that practice, of, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out whether I'm breathing in when we're
Yes.
doing the
So
holding.
inhale. So with that, you could do an inhale up and
Mhm.
then an exhale open.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. That was good.
Inhale up. So
Yeah.
it's that reach.
Right.
Exhale open.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Beautiful. Yes. And that's getting those shoulders back, and you're using that exhale to really reach into that space.
Beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah,
because when you're doing the Zoom thing, I'm always leaning forward, and it's like you feel it.
absolutely.
We're always kind of like in between, kind of trying to roll those shoulders back. It's probably that posture thing of my grandmother in my backyard. Put your shoulders back. Yeah.
Yes. Always, always. And, sometimes, we overcorrect things. And, I think I talked about that in an earlier session where, sometimes even in our breathing, we're worried so much about the belly breathing that we forget about those intercostal muscles or
Exactly.
secondary muscles because we're just thinking about the belly. It's
Mhm.
really, we're thinking about the belly because we don't typically think about the belly. So we're putting some focus there because we want about 60 to 80% of the effort being in that belly space. But we also need to not forget about those intercostal muscles in our ribs and into our chest and the sternum and even to the back and shoulders. And so as we're breathing, all of that is opening up. So thinking
Right.
about that,
And that's always
especially,
been my challenge is remembering to do the back as well. I
yes,
think because I've gotten so used to putting my shoulder blades together that you forget to just relax enough to just bring it
yes.
open.
Those shoulders coming away from the ears. That's always, a direction that I give clients and those in my classes, students in my classes, is really just relaxing those shoulders down. And even when we're doing stretches where we're going up and overhead, sometimes we start to even draw the shoulder up and know that the shoulder needs to stay down. Even though we're reaching up, we need to make sure we're not reaching the shoulder up as well, that the shoulders are down and it's lengthening through the ribs and through the
Yeah, it's
different
a good
tendons.
reminder. It's a good reminder because it is you're when you're like you're saying about over um you know just overcompensating.
Yes,
People are like, okay, I'm gonna stretch, and you're like, no, you gotta stretch this way, not like.
correct. Yeah, there's so many, and stretching is good for the most part. It's really hard to mess it up, right? But we can do better in that, and I think that's like there's so many benefits from stretching, but it's how we can do it most effectively and efficiently, right?
Yeah,
And so if we're lifting up the shoulder too, we're not getting all of the benefits as we were if we had the shoulder down. It's just more effective and more efficient, and so we can do better. And same thing with our breath, engaging the back, the shoulders, the intercostal through the ribs and the belly. That's all involved. I always think about, all the way from the low belly all the way up, and everything, our core, when we think about our core, it's all around the spine, both sides, all around. Very
thank
good.
you. It's
Yes.
great reminders.
Yes. Yes. I mean, and again, we're utilizing our breath in everything we do. And so this is that reminder of, even if you're not doing yoga, but you're doing, squats or, we're inhaling on up exhale, get nice and deep, inhale up, exhale nice and deep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good stuff. All right, so back now, we're going to talk a little bit more into the vagus nerve. So we see in this picture that it's everything. It's affecting our cranial nerve. It is a cranial nerve, longest of the autonomic nervous system. It technically is a part of the nerve system, but is referred to as a singular nerve. Vagabond nerve as little branches go everywhere. So from the vagus nerve, there's all of these little nerves shooting out from it, going into all of the areas that we've talked about, the liver, kidneys, urinary tract, all throughout from our brain on down. And so much to think about when this is all happening. And so we want it functioning at its best, because when it's functioning at its best, then our heart is operating at its best, our lungs are operating at their best, and our digestive tract is operating in it at its best as best we can with that space. Of course, there's other things that affect those as well, but we don't want to forget about, the importance of our breath with that vagus nerve. So breathing with the vagus nerve, it does pass through the opening in the diaphragm, which we've talked about, is stimulated by deep breathing. And so thinking about that deep breath, those quick breaths help to get that fight or flight going as a constant reminder. But other things that can help along with breath, and we actually use our breath when we're doing them, may not always think about it, but humming and singing. So if you like to hum, or if you are a singer and you like to maybe sing while you're in the car, actually, you're helping your breathing as well by doing that. And on the flip side, those that are singers, they are using breath exercises to help with their vagal tone to be able to be better singers. So I'm sure Adele, I don't know her breathing practice, but I can assume that she probably has a pretty stringent breathing practice to be able to have great vagal tone because of the way she sings and that belts out those notes that go on and on and on. So this is just that reminder of how that is working in our bodies. So high vagal tone equals that responsiveness to environment, ability to adapt, and be able to perform at our best. All right. And moving into the heart rate variability. And so this is a big one. Actually, if you've been, reading on any health related topics lately, you may have heard a little bit about heart rate variability. It is an indicator of life. The greater heart rate variability that we have, it's supposed to have some prediction on longevity and health span, and not just lifespan. So when we talk about lifespan, it's like how many years can we click away? When we think about health span, it's like how healthy and functional are we through those years? And so heart rate variability is something that has been studied a lot, and especially in recent years, trying to figure out what are the best things that we need to be able to predict longevity. And again, health span has been a more important topic because we don't want to just click up those years. We want to have functionality both in our brains and in our bodies as we age. And so having that heart rate variability, having that is something that we're aware of. You can look at, like a watch that may show that to you, whether it's a Garmin or an Apple Watch or other devices that we can use. Whoop is another one that does really well with heart rate variability. So having an awareness of it is great. Sometimes you can look at, the Apple app. It shows you an average. That's probably not the best way to look at it, but you could start to see the difference of like how quickly it adjusts after a workout. Do you see a big jump and a big decline? That's actually good. We may not think about that as being good, but it is actually a good sign. So we think about it measures the beat to beat change, the steady rate, low variability equals unhealthy, as I stated, high variability, health, and toned nervous system. Inhaling should trigger an increase in your heart rate. Exhale should reduce that heart rate. And so when we're strategically doing that, we're moving from an increase to a decrease. Um, Standard heart rate monitors usually measure, like I said, the average. And so it's a good thing to see, but you can actually request testing from either your doctor or some naturopathic doctors to be able to see a true gauge of that heart rate variability, and it changes over time. So from day to day, I mean, if we've had a poor night's sleep, it's probably going to get reflected in our heart rate variability as well. Did you have a comment, Terry?
Yeah, I did. My when I was bit with a very affected Lyme's tick, that was one of the first monitors that they had me use, was to figure out how I was reacting to the fight and flight aspect of the infection. And it was very interesting to see how rapid I still was reacting. That
Mm.
when I was doing breathing or when I was doing an IV, I would go into a meditative state, and my heart, the heart, rate would reduce to the point where, but as soon as I was off of it, and I was like consciously thinking, the what comes next, it was like, so the homeopathic and the functional medicine doctors, um, you can't say enough about them because they really do think about that. How is your quality of life?
Yes. And they're looking at multiple systems, right? So that's what's so great is they know that our breathing is going to affect these other parts of our bodies. And many times our primary care physicians have a lot to think about, right? So they're going about, a few inches deep on the scale, and they're not going deep into a lot of areas. And so we have to come prepared, right? Come prepared to our primary care physicians with questions and being able to ask them and kind of challenge them a little bit on your health. And if you see something you're not comfortable with, feel free to be your advocate, right? And figure out what's going on. So higher heart rate variability allows your body to better adapt to stress and return to that calm state, much more quickly and effectively. Regular breath work does effectively train your nervous system to be able to do this, and so we want to think about that for sure. And it strengthens that heart-brain communication. A higher HRV also reflects better communication between your heart and brain. This can lead to improved emotional regulation and cognitive function. So as we continue to age, doing this, forever and ever. This is one of those things that even stroke patients, they may not be able to move and function properly, but we can work, on breath work with them as well, because it is one thing that they are still able to do. They may not be able to do all of the holds as long, but as we did with the testing in the beginning, right? We start where we are and we work from there. So knowing that it is such a great tool for our cognitive systems as well. So, as I mentioned earlier, that enhanced immune function, this is a big one. So if we're reducing stress related to immune suppression, so that's extremely important. It decreases inflammation. And as we know, inflammation triggers everything. So we think about autoimmune diseases are caused by inflammation in the body. So if we're able to reduce inflammation throughout the body, then we're giving ourselves a better chance, and it boosts the immune cell activity. So again, any of these things that we can do to boost our immune system is going to make us stronger. I'm sorry, Terry, did you have a comment? You're on mute.
Sorry, I said, yeah, it does. It's a quality of life thing that most people just take for granted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, decreasing inflammation, people just don't realize. I don't want to say how easy it is because you just got to be conscious of it, but there are simple things you can do
Yeah.
that helps you all the way around and then keeps you from getting worse with chronic
Yes.
issues.
Absolutely. And when we talk about inflammation, we're talking about things that we may not see, right, through the
Mhm.
eye. So we may have inflammation, we may have aches and pains in joints and in other areas of the body and not think of it as inflammation because we're not seeing swelling.
Yeah.
But it's happening within. Once we see the swelling, it has advanced, right? So
Oh
that's
yeah,
an advanced
definitely.
stage. So if we're doing these things as a practice, then it's keeping things in check. So you can start to tell by how it feels. And a lot of times I'll work with clients. It's like, how do you feel? Like, when you wake up, does it hurt when your feet hit the floor? And if so, okay, we've got some work to do, right? So those are just some things. And even coming from a seated position, when we stand up after being seated for a period of time, it's like, oh, how easy was that? Or did you feel pain? And what do we need to do and work through that? But definitely inflammation throughout, not only joints, but lungs and throughout the body.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So stress relief, we've talked about a lot, counteracts the fight or flight response, lowers stress hormones, promotes mindfulness. So when we're able to breathe, we are able to really focus on what's in front of us. That can be hard sometimes. Life is coming at you from a lot of different directions, but if we can focus on one thing at a time, um, my husband and I joke a little bit about this one. Guys have a tendency to be, one a little bit, more focused on one thing instead of multitasking. We used to think, wow, I'm a multitasker and brag about that, but actually, it is not good for us to be multitasking, and it's really good for us to be able to stay on task, be able to stay on that one thing, complete it, move on to the next thing. As long as you have your list of all of the things that you need to do, that's a great way to be able to do that. We don't always think about that, but yeah, it's good and bad, right? It's a curse and it's it's a
It's a
great
curse
thing.
and a gift.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what my husband always reminds me of that. He says, "You're always thinking three things ahead, but how about you just think about the present?"
Yes. 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 And it's such great advice. And I think we've, tried to ignore that through Gen X and beyond a little bit too much, thinking that we can do it all. But I think it's, definitely a way for us to stay very mindful of what we're doing. I'll throw in a tidbit on having mindful eating here as well. So anytime we're focused on what we're doing, we're thinking about what we're doing, right? And if we're multitasking, we're not always thinking about the things that we're doing. That comes down to relationships. It comes down to, as I said in the beginning, putting the phone down and away, not having those distractions, and we can just be more mindful in all. But then when we compound that with breath work, it's a beautiful thing. We start to lower those stress hormones and be able to dial into that parasympathetic system where we want to spend most of our time. So we're getting kind of close to the end here. What will you take away from this experience?
Well, for me, I'm seeing some of the patterns, some of the things that you've brought up that we've done naturally that I think we need to enhance and do it intentionally in our practice.
Mhm.
You were talking about the humming.
Yes.
I've always done that. My husband's always done that. It always seems like when we need to refocus or we're focused on something so intently and we want to just keep our calmness instead of freaking out something's happened. And I want to say that now I feel that maybe some of the practices we've done, you've actually given us the security to know that the foundation is set. Now we just need to be more intentional on it. So
Yes.
that's yeah, because even like I said, even my son with Erica being very much in tune of preventative versus let's fix it. With the meditation at night that they started over a year ago, and keeping things calm
Yes.
before they go to sleep and debriefing. I think it's fantastic. And like I said, my husband and I have been doing a midday break where I know last week we were kind of like, well, you're really supposed to do it at the end of the day. But I'm like, no, that is kind of like the end of a segment of our day.
Yes. Yep.
So in order to clear the mind, to intentionally debrief and refocus, and then be able to then go to the next segment with um, your body feeling calm. You're not grabbing, like you were saying, not multitasking,
Hmm.
because we would actually walk and talk and get, that's our multitasking. We stopped years ago having conversations, like work relation uh, conversations over lunch, because we would get so intense about gotta. We were just like not mindful about doing that.
Yeah,
And that, I think you've just reinforced that as,
beautiful.
okay, this is a good thing, because it's just, being present. And I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress when it comes
We
to
all are. We all are works in progress because I can catch myself, in situations. It's like, nope, nope. I just need to step back and, take a breath, literally,
it.
and being able to do that throughout the day. And just as reminders, too, just testing ourselves on occasion just to kind of
Yeah.
see where we're at, seeing where that dominance is, is a good indicator because especially if we're waking up through the night or we catch ourselves and like you said, you were feeling like you needed that deeper breath midday because you were probably still in that right nostril dominance because even the balanced breathing wasn't strong enough to kick into a more relaxed state. So you needed to go to the next level, right?
Mhm.
Same thing like me, I'll do the coffee breathing in the afternoon sometime. It's really right. It's supposed to be just in the mornings, right? But if I hit a 2 o'clock slump or something that I just need to refocus and bring that back. Yeah, absolutely. You're going to incorporate it when you need it, right? And that's the beautiful part about it. It's not like caffeine to where it's going to affect you differently later on in the evening. You can still flip the parasympathetic system back on when you need it.
Yes. And yesterday, like I said, yesterday was the perfect example of everything you've taught us and everything that we've incorporated into the practice. It really did, like, starting from the morning, before the morning meeting, all the way through the different segments, and taking the time to bring focus back and do that coffee breathing before going into that last meeting that I was like, am I going to be able to like stand? Never mind talk.
Right?
And
Right.
then
Because
being
you said
able
you
to
were
do
depleted, right?
exactly. And they, after that was done at 8 o'clock at night, I was sitting here just doing my meditative practice and doing my box breathing. And I was comfortable enough where I didn't even have to soak last night.
Mm,
Normally, after a marathon day, I literally have to soak in the tub in order to decompress enough where I could get some sleep.
mhm.
And just doing the end of the day practice that you taught us, I was able to go to sleep and actually just go out.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
that says a lot. If that's not a testimony to what you just taught us, I don't know what is.
Oh, that's beautiful, Terry. Thank you so much for sharing that. And as that reminder, we have that morning coffee breathing. So those quick breaths, either the bellows breathing or, our breath of fire. So incorporating those midday as needed, water breathing throughout the day, really anything that's a balanced breath in and out. The whiskey breathing or that more intense relaxation breathing in the evenings, typically depending on, what's going on. Long holds, for sleep regulation. So thinking about that 30-second or 30 count that we can do to be able to help us to just really down, deregulate quickly. That one is good. Any of those longer practices, 10 rounds when we're thinking about at night is good, except for those 30-second long holds. But any of those whiskey breathing categories, or water breathing categories, we're thinking around 10 rounds as we're doing that. And we haven't fully done that except on the videos that I had sent over where it's those long breathing rounds that really start to regulate that system and then incorporating it into your breath into your yoga practice or whatever movement practices that you have. It is just a great way to think about that relaxation on the exhale inhale is invigorating, and just remembering that throughout your day and throughout your week. Well, again, that 5 minutes works. Sometimes, we don't have time for the 10 rounds, just 5 minutes of breath work. Remember to just check in, pause, just close your eyes, taking some breaths. The commute we talked about, we don't want to do a whole lot of breath work when we're driving, but water breath, water is anytime. So thinking about those balanced breaths, you can do those during that. You and I have talked about the pre-meeting grounding, taking in those breaths and just allowing you to be able to listen or be able to engage for a period of time. So just working breath into your everyday life. Thank you so much for taking time with me over this last 4 weeks of this journey, and take your breath with you everywhere you go. It is just such a gift. Terry, thank you for joining.
Thank you. And namaste.
Yes, namaste. Have a wonderful rest of your day and beautiful weekend. Take good care.